You know the feeling, right? You're in an online meeting, just staring at a grid of static profile pictures. It's like you're talking into a void. But here's the thing. Even when your camera is off, you're sending out these powerful signals that make people either lean in and listen or just completely tune out. Today, we're going to get into the science of that digital first impression. So let me just ask you this straight up. When your camera is off, do you just disappear? It kind of feels that way, doesn't it? But the truth is, you haven't vanished. Not at all. You've just switched the channel on how you communicate. In that sea of static avatars, your profile picture and the sound of your voice, that's it. That's your entire presence. They're doing all the talking for you, creating a whole impression of who you are before you even get to your big idea. So the real question is, what story are they actually telling? Okay, let's get into the investigation. A group of researchers at Keio University in Japan were totally fascinated by this exact problem. So they designed this brilliant little experiment to figure out what combination of these hidden cues actually works when nobody can see you. Here's how they did it. It's pretty clever. They set up 6 different scenarios. They took 3 kinds of visuals, just a name, a photo with a totally neutral face, and a smiling photo. Then they paired each of those up with 2 very different voices. One was completely flat, monotone, expressionless, and the other was warm and energetic, full of life. They showed these combos to a bunch of people to see what would happen. Who would hold their attention? So what happened? Well, the results were incredibly clear, and honestly, a little shocking. Let's take a look at what the data tells us about keeping or, well, completely losing an audience. All right, now this is where it gets really interesting. Look at this graph. On the left, in the before column, you can see that about 55% of people were interested in the proposal from the get-go. But now, follow those lines over to the after column. Do you see that? Nearly every single one takes a nosedive. People's interest didn't just dip, it fell off a cliff. And this slide just lays it all out, the 2 extremes. So, the absolute worst combination, the one that just killed engagement, a neutral photo with a flat, neutral voice. Interest just plummeted. And the winner? A smiling photo combined with an expressive, energetic voice. Now, it still lost a few people, but it was by far the best at holding on to the room. So the big question is why? Why does this happen? It's not just about sounding friendly. The researchers really dug into what people were thinking and feeling to get to the psychology behind why we either lean in or just check out. So how do we know what they were feeling? Well, the researchers gave us they're called co-occurrence networks. Just think of them as word maps. They show which words people use together when they were describing their experience. On the left, you've got the map for people who lost interest. On the right, the map for the few who actually got more interested. And right away, 2 big ideas jump out: consistency and vocal energy. Let's start with the negative side. Look at the words popping up again and again. Voice, dull, monotonous. And you can see they're all linked to this idea of a mismatch between the picture and the sound. And where does that lead? Straight to feeling uncomfortable. A flat voice didn't just bore people, it actually made them feel uneasy. It even led to distrust. And nothing, I mean nothing, captures this better than this direct quote from one of the participants. They said, and I'm quoting here, "I felt uncomfortable because the image of him smiling did not match the lack of inflection in his voice." Wow, that one little inconsistency was enough to just shatter the trust. Okay, now let's flip the script. What about the small group that started out skeptical but was totally won over? The story here is completely different. Look at the words that dominate this map: voice, bright, good, and understand. A bright, energetic voice didn't just make the speaker sound better, it made the content itself feel more enjoyable and easier to get. And here's the proof. Someone wrote, "It seems like a fun activity to participate in because his voice sounds fun and bright." Just think about that for a second. The proposal was exactly the same, but it was seen as more fun simply because of the speaker's vocal energy. The voice alone literally changed what was being offered. So what does all of this mean for you, for your next camera-off meeting? Let's turn all this science into a really practical playbook you can use to nail your own digital first impression. It really boils down to this simple 2-part strategy, and it all depends on who you're talking to. First, to keep an audience that's already interested, your #1 job is consistency. But to capture a new or skeptical audience, your most powerful weapon is vocal energy. Let's break that down. Say you're talking to people who are already on your team, people who are already on board. Your main goal is simple. Don't lose them. A smiling profile pic paired with a tired, flat voice just feels weird. It's an inconsistency that creates distrust and makes them second guess you. In this case, making sure your voice matches your picture is absolutely everything. But what if you're facing a tough crowd, a skeptical audience? Well, then the whole game changes. Here, your secret weapon is an expressive, energetic voice. That's how you cut through their indifference. A bright tone can spark curiosity and build motivation, opening their minds to what you have to say before they've even really started processing your words. So, before you hop on your next call and click that camera off button, just take a second. Look at your profile picture. Think about the energy in your voice. What story are they going to tell together? Because as we've just seen, that silent first impression, well, it might just be the most important thing you say all day.